One of my most watched videos on this channel is called "What Exactly Does a Talent Sourcer Do?" And since there's interest in that topic, I thought I would bring you this video with much more precision and intention. And this one is called "What is the Difference Between Recruiting and Sourcing?" I'd like to start with the definition for sourcer, since I am a current talent sourcer. And William Maurer explains it brilliantly. He breaks down the role of a sourcer into 4 parts: the search expert, an ambassador for the brand, a teacher, not only on an immediate team, but the larger recruiting and sourcing community, and a strategist. And I love this definition so much that I've actually updated my LinkedIn profile to reflect it. It's a great 4-part breakdown of what I do every day. Now, the bottom line is that a sourcer is working with a recruiter or with a recruiting team to identify, engage, and assess talent. And once that talent has been assessed, the talent sourcer hands off that person to a recruiter. Now, typical sourcing expert is going to reach out to people both online and offline who have not applied to the role, who have not even maybe considered this company and part of their own career strategy, and they're going to be able to have an intelligent conversation with this person about how their skills could be beneficial to the company, answer that person's preliminary questions, and then once the candidate says, that does sound interesting, I'd like to be formally considered, that's when the talent sourcer would hand this person off to the recruiter. But there's a very integral part between this handoff that's overlooked quite often, and that's the role of the recruiting coordinator. And recruiting coordinators are really the unsung champions of the sourcing and recruiting process. They're doing everything from what you think of when you hear the term coordination, which is scheduling and coordinating logistics, but they're doing so much more. I can't even get into everything that recruiting coordinators do, but they add value in a lot of the nuanced aspects of the process. So keeping the person, the candidate, warm in between steps, checking on their availability, handling any logistics for traveling, for parking the day of the interview, for making sure that the interview room is comfortable for the candidate, from having snacks there, water, from greeting the candidate when they arrive, making sure that they're escorted from room to room as needed, making sure they have their bathroom breaks, making sure that interviewers are where they're supposed to be the day of the interview. I mean, coordinators are really the glue that holds this whole thing together. So just a big shout out to all the fantastic recruiting coordinators I've had the privilege of working with. Your job is often a thankless one, so I just want to give you a big thank you. So this bridge from the talent sourcer to the recruiter is that recruiting coordinator who will likely set up a call with the recruiter as a next step. But once that is done, the recruiter will kind of take over from there, and the sourcer usually is removed from the rest of this process. So the recruiter is responsible for 3 major areas from my vantage point, and that's managing the process in close partnership with the hiring manager. And that has to do with understanding the business needs, understanding the hiring manager's perspectives, and then balancing that with the candidate's skills, interest, and their own needs. Candidates have needs as well to grow their careers, and the recruiter should be able to address all of those pieces as the conversation continues. Next up is executing on strategy. So at the beginning of the recruiting process, often the recruiters lead a meeting called an intake meeting, or a strategy session, as I like to call it. And during that meeting, the stakeholders, like the hiring manager, the hiring team, the interview panel, the sourcer, the recruiter, all the integral players, the recruiting coordinator as well, will sit in a room or on a video call and flesh out how the process should work. And so once that's defined, it's really on the recruiter to make sure that this is pushed along and moved along at a good pace so that you can maintain the interest of the candidate, keep the hiring team engaged, and also get that momentum going that's so important in the process. So executing on that initial strategy. Finally, the recruiter has to drive the offer. So once a candidate has been selected, you would think the main thing that the recruiter is doing at the end to close the candidate is negotiating salary. But that's just one small piece of it. And that's why I put this graphic here. It's quite complex when you think about everything that comes into play at the end of the process when you're ready to extend the offer. So in addition to negotiating salary, the recruiter is going to seal the deal by thinking through relocation options and packages, benefits. Oftentimes candidates want to negotiate a little bit more vacation time or just add different perks that maybe are not standard. So it's important to consider those things. Also stock options, if that is related to the role that in the company is offering, that's something that takes a careful conversation as well. Recruiters are also dealing with visa and work authorization issues. And most importantly, they're navigating the timing of all of this. The offer, it needs to make sense for the business and also for the candidate who has life and work commitments outside of, the offer that could make things even more tricky. And keep in mind, for a source candidate who was not planning to make a move, this could be even more delicate of a situation to balance. So recruiters have to think about all of those things. Additionally, when you think about the background check that's required by a company, it could be a light one where the recruiter only has to check 3 references and then they're a go. Or it could be more extensive and comprehensive, like some companies require a drug test and verification of degree, verification of employment dates and previous titles and salaries. And these things require time and energy and effort, and the recruiter is often, if not doing those things directly, partnering with that recruiting coordinator to make sure that all of these pieces are attended to. Finally, when the recruiter is able to extend the offer and do that verbally, get the offer letter, put it in writing, then they receive the acceptance from the candidate and essentially the position closes out. One quick piece I'll add to that is the onboarding team, which can make a difference in the process. They're really critical partners. Can you remember a time when you started a job, your very first day, you walked in, the receptionist greeted you with a smile, immediately walked you to your desk where it was set up. You had your laptop, you had your supplies right there on your desk, maybe a little name placard or a little sign welcoming you. And then, your buddy or your person that interviewed you last walks over to you and really escorts you through the day with purpose, shows you where the restrooms are, shows you where the kitchen is, gets you set up, and has really dedicated their entire day to making sure that you're taken care of. Do you remember how you felt? Like at the beginning of that day, the middle of that day, the end of that day? You felt good, hopefully, about your choice to join this company. Now, remember a time when you started on a first day and you waited in the lobby 15 to 20 minutes on your first day because the receptionist was scouring for someone to come pick you up. Maybe the person who was assigned to you was out of the office that day or running late. And there you were, just kind of lounging in the lobby waiting for someone to claim you, right? Kind of in the lost and found section. And then when someone claimed you, they took you to this area. It's not your actual desk because your desk wasn't ready and you didn't have a computer and you kind of were sitting in between 2 people who, there wasn't enough space between them, but they kind of forged this little space for you. And maybe there's a little dust on the desk and the papers all over the desk. And you can tell it's not prepared for you. Now, how did you feel that morning, that afternoon, that evening about your choice to join the company? The first day on your job should be a happy experience, and either way you look at it, it's going to be memorable, okay? Either for a good reason or a bad reason. So it's the onboarding team that really makes it happen, and shout out to the onboarding partners that really have done a great job of making that process really enjoyable. So the last piece that I want to chat about is the question that I get sometimes, which is, does every recruiter need a talent sourcer? And the answer is no. And the truth is that there is a lot of overlap between the roles of a sourcer and recruiter these days. And really depending on your industry and how your company works it, a sourcer could have more or less responsibility than what I've outlined here. Some recruiters do their own sourcing and they, start at that very beginning stage of identifying talent in addition to handling the candidates who apply online. Now, sourcing wasn't around per se when I started recruiting, but we also had the option back in the day to maybe purchase a research list. So a name researcher or a recruiting researcher would do some of the groundwork of finding names and email addresses and phone numbers so that a recruiter could now reach out to people who maybe hadn't applied. So the concept was still there. It just hadn't been as disrupted as it became once big players like LinkedIn came into the game and really organized a lot of that data for us and put it at our fingertips. You also have to think about organizations like SourceCon, which do a fantastic job of training sourcers to go above and beyond and really giving them specific skills that will help them hone in on their sourcing abilities. So teaching them how to better research, how to find people, how to engage people, and how to partner with recruiters and other internal partners to really make the process a positive one and to add value as a sourcer. So not every recruiter has access to a sourcer, but those that do hopefully would agree that it is a value add. The final question that I'll address: how does LinkedIn play into all this? I mentioned LinkedIn, and sometimes candidates will ask, how did you reach me on LinkedIn? Like, we're not connected. How did you find me? Or what made you reach out to me? So LinkedIn, for those of you who don't know, in addition to being a professional social networking site, also has an enterprise solution for businesses where companies can pay for their recruiters to access the entire database of 400 million plus profiles and really scour that database and refine your search so that you can find and pinpoint the talent that would be the best fit for your job. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of moving pieces in that process of sourcing and recruiting, right? And taking someone from the front end of the process where the talent sourcing is happening, the identification and the engagement, all the way to the back end of the process where the offer is being made and the offer letter is being signed and the start date is being determined. There are a lot of layers in between. And again, the recruiting coordinator, the onboarding team, and a lot of the business partners that I didn't mention all play a very critical role in making it happen. And the final outcome is that you are in a seat at a new job that you hopefully love. I have to say, it's a beautiful thing when a team of people come together and work toward a common goal. And that is what happened when you are working with a cohesive and collaborative team of sourcers and recruiters. Thank you for watching. I look forward to reading your comments, and you can also ask any questions or reach me at Talent Genie on Twitter. Thanks so much.